The Madman!
Last time we went to a convention, everyone was like, Trump, I love your custom card series. And I'm like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So sorry for not doing it for a while. So let's get started with Blindside. 2 mana Rogue Warrior spell. Deal 5 damage to a damaged minion, combo, and undamaged one instead. Love it. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. Clearly, dealing damage to undamaged minions tends to be better than dealing damage to damaged minions. So it's a cool combo effect. It manages to bleed into Warrior because Warrior is carrying the deal damage to damaged minion side. Rogue is comboing and then dealing damage to undamaged minions instead. 2 deal 5 is really strong if it's undamaged, but it's a combo, and Warrior gets a little bit of opportunity to join in the efficient removal thing. This is a huge amount of design space that is possible. There are a total of 36 dual class combinations that you can make. And I think these cards are cool because you can play them in 2 different classes, so they show up twice as much in theory. Fast forward. Paladin 1 mana spell. Summon a random 2-cost minion. Design 3 stars, balance 4 stars. The massive design problem with this card is that that is really swingy for turn 1. And I was thinking about this, and there is a precedent for a card like this. Whispers of Evil. The fact that priests can sometimes, 1/7 of the time, get Faceless Lackey though, is a small enough chance that that's a really high roll, whereas simply drawing the fast forward is not enough downside. All the 2 costs tend to be on average 2 2s in stats, but there are some really high rolls to like 2 6s or 4 4s, and just the chance of swinging the game like that on turn 1, that's really big. There's already aggressive Paladin decks out there, and giving them more aggressive tools is really dangerous too. Free from Amber is an example of a lower mana cost card cheating at a higher mana card. Fast Forward could be redesigned to have a higher mana cost and summon a higher random cost minion as well. And Paladins are the Brown's dragon class, so it makes sense that they summon stuff faster. Whisk, the infamous. 5 mana 4/6 elemental, battlecry, add a tempting wish to each player's hand. The tempting wish is a 0 mana card that wishes for the perfect card, and if the opponent hasn't played their wish, gives them another. Whew, that's really interesting. And we all love Zephrys. I'm gonna give the design 4 stars, balance 4 stars. The tick down on design and balance is because being able to fetch any card from basic that's 5 or less when you're at 10 mana is a really big deal. It could be a board clear, it could be a Bloodlust to finish out the game, it could be a Soul of the Forest for a big board, it could be a Harrison Jones for weapon removal. We all know how strong wishes are, and to not have to restrict your deck, that's a bit too much. And I think the main problem is that Whisk only costs 5 mana, so you can just play Whisk and then the Wish. Yes, the downside is you give your opponent 2 wishes, but if you're finishing out the game with like a huge game-ending play, I think any deck would simply just put this in. And if you raise the Whisk's mana cost, then you might just get Savage Roar all the time. I think that such a card could be a good design if it were raised in mana cost, and then your opponent would be often the first one who could wish for something relevant, but if you're ahead on the board, then Whisk becomes quite good because they wish, but they can't win the game with it. You get 2 wishes, that's cool. There's this standoff idea where nobody wants to be the first one to wish because then the opponent will get 2 wishes, and wishes are really powerful cards. Aspiring Warlock. A mage card, 2 mana 3/2. Whenever you take damage from your hero power, draw a card. This was almost going to be the trump card of the week. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars. I was very, very close. I think it's really cool that the classes are bleeding flavor from one to another. It makes a lot of sense that someone's aspiring to be a warlock, yet is a mage right now. So they're like trying to turn to the dark side, and mage uniquely can use their hero power to take damage. And it's almost like life tap then. You fire blast yourself in the face. Really evokes a cool image. Next up, we have Egg Thief. 4 mana, 3/4, battlecry, take control of an enemy minion with 0 attack. A beast, by the way. Design 4 stars, balance 3 stars. I'm reviewing this card mostly because it goes to show the problem of ultra-specific tech cards. Such a card would never see play, unless its stats were so good that it was basically a vanilla minion. And I don't believe there's a way to really take advantage of taking control of something with 0 attack. Taking control of stuff with 1 attack, or destroying stuff with 1 attack, like there was possibilities there, such as with Aldor Peacekeeper or something, or Humility. But 0 attack, like that's so specific that no one would ever play this card. This wouldn't see play even at 3 mana, by the way. But actually, I would say that at 3 mana, it could be a pretty interesting card. That's just a good vanilla stat line with like a upside potential. Grandma Gleck. 2 mana, 2/3 legendary. Start of game, give both players a coin. This is a noteworthy card because it was done by the man who had a goal of creating a card for every single day of the year in 2019. The goal for this card was create a start of game effect that isn't imbalanced. Design 2 stars, balance 3 stars. This is imbalanced. It turns out that a symmetric effect that gives both players a coin is not balanced because some decks are way better when they have a coin in their hand. Rogue is probably the primary example of which, because a lot of rogue cards activate with combo. Suppose you're going second. You coin, Edwin Van Cleef. And yes, while Edwin Van Cleef could be argued to be the person with the problem, Grandma Gleck is also just too powerful because the rogue class exists. It just turns out that start of game is really, really powerful of an effect, and you have to be really careful that it works somehow. So just watch out for those start of game effects. Baseless Chronicler. 1 mana, 1/3 mage minion. After a player casts a spell, return this to your hand as a copy of it. Design 4 stars, balance 3 stars. I think the idea of copying a spell in your hand, or perhaps even the opponent's hand, is cool, but there's a reason why it hasn't been done yet, and that's because it's really hard to balance. Quest Mage is already doing that with Vargoth for 4 mana, just to copy the extra copy of Time Warp. But to be able to do that for 1 mana, that's ridiculous. And of course that's a wild card, but that's the biggest example. You just play Faceless Chronicler, and then you play a Fireball, and that's like an abundance of burn that you get. 1 mana, discover your best spell. It's like, that's just so much despair. I think cooler might be after an opponent casts a spell, return this to your hand as a copy of it. Now that's a cool design, and that might have gotten Trump Card of the Week. So that's my simple fix to it. Adusto, Moving Sun. Paladin, 7 mana, 4/6 elemental. When drawn, Battlecry and Death Rattle, give your hero Divine Shield. Design 5 stars, balance 1 star. It's not as useless as it looks, because the most useless way that you could work Adusto is you could think of it as gain 3 health. But not just that, Paladins use weapons, so it might be difficult to time it correctly to draw it at the right time, but it's certainly easy to get the Battlecry effect off while you have a weapon. And then you can attack whatever thing you want and not take damage for it, which could be a large amount of health. So when you look at it holistically, and you think of giving your hero Divine Shield 3 times as maybe worth 8 health, and then we can directly compare this card to Amber Watcher, which is a 5 mana 4/6 dragon, which Battlecry restores 8 health. And it's like, okay, maybe Adusto is a bit too weak. I think there might be an easy fix to Adusto. Just drop that mana cost down by 2. And finally, we have the Trump Card of the Week, a Shaman, 2 mana 2/1 Mire Potioneer. Battlecry, choose a minion, discover a spell that costs the same. I think this is a really unique effect. Design 5 stars, balance 5 stars, and also well balanced. So first of all, there's a requirement that there has to be a minion in play in order for Mire Potioneer to even be good. Because otherwise, you just whiff and then it's a 2 mana 2/1. And then you have so many options on how you want to Potioneer. In order to get what you want, you need to target really specific mana costs. So in that respect, you could almost think of it as a Zephrys-like thing. If the right situation happens, you can target their 7 cost card and discover the Earthquake you need, target their 3 cost card and get that Lightning Storm. But maybe those don't exist. Maybe you need to create the situation. and it requires a lot of knowledge for what spells exist in Shaman. Certainly, it's possible that you'll target something that has no spells at the mana cost, and that's just something you're going to have to know. I guess that's why the card is epic. It requires a little bit more knowledge. It's not just your basic level of, okay, I'm going to play it on something and then I'm going to get something. You need to know quite a bit about your class to play it. But I think because of that, it's a beautiful design, and you play with it enough and you'll get to know like all the things you're looking for. It's usually a pretty narrow range. Like if you target a minion, you generally know exactly what you're going to get because there's not that many spells in every single mana slot. And what's really interesting is if another class manages to generate it, then they'll discover spells from their class that cost the same. And that should be a pretty rare occasion, but still cool. So thanks for being patient and still tuning in to these custom cards.